absolute gem. Thank you for clicking on my story time series. This is one of the videos I'm doing for my 16 days of Halloween, posting every other day in October. And you guys know I like to tell you guys stories of my life, pieces of me, to just let you guys in and know a little more personal things other than the stories that I'm telling of other people, because as much as I love telling their stories, I want you guys to know me personally too. So because it's Halloween month, it's a creepy time, I wanted to tell you guys kind of something that fits in with both my true crime videos and story times, and it's the fact that my house was a crime scene and he got away with it. Not clickbait, it's the real story of what really happened. So please thumbs up if you'd like more stories about me. I know you guys really like the true crime content, but if you do want to know more about me, I'd love to tell you, so let me know. Now let's get back to the story. Now this happened back in 2003 when I was 7 years old. If you guys haven't watched the video where I talk about what happened to my 19 siblings, we did foster care when I was a kid, so we had a 3-4-month-old little boy named Isaiah. He is like, oh, he was the most adorable. I miss him so incredibly much, but if you want to know more about him, I'll link that video below. But basically, he was there with us. We were watching him for a while in foster care because he didn't have anywhere to go. We were willing to adopt him and all of that. So he was my brother. My mom and I were helping to give him a bath. In that video I also talk about that I've always been very motherly, very caring towards children and animals, and I just wanted to help a lot. So we were giving him a bath in one of those little, the little things that you stick in the bath. It's like basically a car seat for kids to sit in the bath, so obviously they don't drown while you're trying to clean them. And so we were doing that in the bathtub in the little bathroom that we used to live in. We didn't live in the bathroom. Oh my. We had a pretty small sized house when I was growing up. It wasn't too incredibly big, and the bathroom was like the tiniest thing in the entire world. So we were in there trying to give him a bath, and all of a sudden we heard this kind of loud boom. And I don't exactly remember this because, like I said, I was 7. I only have certain memories of it, so I've had my mom kind of fill in the pieces where I had forgotten, and she said that they kind of heard a loud boom. Now my dad rushed in from where he was in the living room, so the bathroom was here, and the living room was kind of like down the hall and right here, and then the front door was obviously attached to the living room. And he kind of rushed into the bathroom and said, "What was that?" Like asking my mom and I if something had fallen in the bathroom, if we were the ones that caused that sound. And my mom was just like, that wasn't us. And so my dad then ran back out to the living room to kind of look around and see what the boom was. My mom and I and the little baby Isaiah we're still in the bathroom, so we didn't really know what was happening, what he was doing out there. But when he came back in, he had the most horrified look on his face, and when I tell you it was terrifying to look at, it's something that my 7-year-old brain kept and has stored in my memories because it was that horrific to look at. That sounds horrible. My dad, like, he's not ugly. The expression on his face was just awful. He was completely pale in the face, like when you are sick and you haven't eaten in a day. Like, that is the kind of look he had on his face, like he had just seen a ghost. And so my mom like turned around and looked at him, and I remember looking at him as well, and he just said in the most like monotone voice that you could ever say something in, "Someone hit our van." And obviously, since I had siblings, we were doing foster care, we would have a minivan at all times that was parked in our driveway. But none of us had been out in the van, so we didn't quite understand what he was saying. It hit the van that was parked in the driveway. Like, what? Maybe he meant like someone hit some van, you know, got in a car accident outside. We didn't really know what he was talking about. So as he went back out to the living room, my mom frantically like tried to get Isaiah out of the bath, tried to get us out of the bathroom. Then she walked out to the living room herself. And this is where I actually was like following her to see what was happening. And when we opened the front door, it was absolutely far worse than we were expecting. This wasn't just somebody hit a van outside. It wasn't just somebody hit our van. It was that somebody had it looked like demolished our van in our front yard. This van that was sitting like this was now sitting directly onto our porch like this. Like completely diagonal to how it was supposed to be sitting in the driveway. Not only that, but all of the windows were completely shattered and glass was everywhere on the ground. There were blankets that had been like thrown out of the back window when the glass exploded. And now this van that wasn't even in use was in our front porch, like in our front yard. The two pictures that I have in my head are of my dad's face and of this van as it sat in our front yard. It was like a bluish, like whitish Ford Windstar. Can you just imagine walking out in your front yard, expecting your van to be in the driveway where you left it, and it being like right in front of your door? Just sit and imagine that for a minute, because it's not like this car came to life. It wasn't some magical chance that it flew into the yard. Somebody had hit the car and slammed it into our yard. They were nowhere to be found. While my dad called the police, upon a closer look, we found that not only had it hit our van, it had hit a windmill that was in our neighbor's yard over here. It had hit and knocked that down. It had gone and like skidded past my dad's car and like hit the car, and then ran right into the van, slammed it into our house, and then almost like it backed up, went through our yard this way and hit a light post that we had, knocked that down, and then went into across the street to the neighbor across the street's yard, backed out and hit a van that was parked in the street. And then apparently this person sped away because there was nobody there when we went outside. The neighbors next door actually owned the van that was in the street, and they had rushed outside as soon as they heard the noise and said there was nobody there. So within seconds, whoever did this was completely gone. Now mind you, this isn't like we lived in the country. We didn't live by a highway. You know, this person wasn't supposed to be going, you know, 60 miles an hour and then just like went off into a ditch into our yard. We lived in the middle of town, where the speed limit's like 25, maybe 30. And to do this much damage, this person would have had to be going like highway speeds, if not more. It took a few hours before the police contacted us with more information, because obviously it was a hit and run, so they didn't know who did it. Until a man came into the station saying that his son had actually hit a car and that he got so scared that he sped away and went back home. The son wasn't with the man, but his father said that this is what has happened, and he was basically confessing for him, but the son wasn't with him. Now, we don't know exactly what happened because obviously we weren't involved in the investigation part of it, but from what we gathered, from what we were told, the next day, because I was pretty late at night, because what I didn't mention is when this happened, we were giving like an evening bath to Isaiah. So it was kind of like around sunset, so it was about to get dark. It wasn't completely dark, like you could obviously still see outside, but it wasn't, you know, completely light out either. And so by the time this man came in, it was already probably late into the night. So we assumed that it was the next day when the police went to this man's house, this father, and asked his boy what had happened. This boy was a 17-year-old teenage boy who we think's first name is Dustin. We didn't really get any of the information because you'll find out later on that we didn't really get anything out of it. But when they went to his house, they asked him what happened, when he proceeded to tell them that when he was driving down the street, going the normal speed limit, he reached down to grab his cell phone that had fallen between his legs, like by the brakes, by the gas. So he reached down to do that, and as he did that, he lost control of the car and sped through all of our yards and just completely lost control to the point where he hit so many, and then he got scared and ran off back home. He basically was saying like he didn't mean it to be a hit and run, and that is supposedly when they gave him a hit and run ticket, which I don't know how much those usually run, but I'll put it up on the screen if I can find it. He never went to court for that as far as we know, so we're thinking that that ticket didn't really even exist, and in fact we think that his father, who originally went into the police station by himself, knew somebody at that police station or knew somebody that kind of had more power and obviously more say than us, and kind of got his son completely out of it. Because this teenage boy, if he would have hit the van at any other time or any harder, he could have killed not only me and Isaiah, but my father. Now that is because in the back seat is where our car seats sat when we were younger, and that is the exact place where the van was hit and the glass was shattered. So we would basically have died upon impact, and if that car would have gone any farther into our house, my dad was sitting right there in the living room on the couch and would have been crushed to death. So this man, who possibly could have killed 2, 3 more victims if there would have been people in the cars or the yards next door. He wasn't criminally charged, but not only that, he didn't even come say sorry. Not one time did he come up to our door and say, you know, I'm sorry for what happened. I didn't mean to. He didn't offer to help clean up, because we had to leave the van outside of our house overnight because the cops obviously wanted it to be a crime scene that they could investigate. So they wanted to wait till the next day where they could see it in better light. And so we had to leave it there with the glass shards everywhere and a van in our front yard. And so it was literally a complete mess. He didn't even come offer to clean it up. He didn't come say sorry. He didn't do anything. In fact, we never saw him. At this time, people from our town, because we lived in a very tiny town, people from our town began calling us because having a van in the front of your house, like not even in the front, like on the front of your house with glass everywhere, is not a normal scene, especially in a small town. So people were calling us, you know, making sure we were okay, wanting to know what happened, and it was horrifying that not only could we not really afford a new van at this time, we could have all been killed. We had no idea who did it for the first night, and once we did know nothing had really happened to him, and even better than that, he didn't have insurance. So my mom and dad had to pay a $250 deductible on both the van and the car to basically get them to pay the rest of it, our insurance, to pay the rest of it since he wasn't going to pay. But then a year later, we got a check for a $250 reimbursement, which led us to believe that this guy who had done it had paid it off in full to our insurance, and that's why we got the money back. But we were never informed of what actually happened, so who knows if he actually did or what happened. Not only were my parents angry that this had happened, because obviously accidents happen, but the fact that he didn't even go into the station with his father. His father went in alone, and then after that, his parents, didn't make him come over to apologize, because my parents said as soon as that happened, they would have taken whatever kid had done that to the house that they had done it to and made them at least knock on the door and say, I'm so sorry, you know, send them flowers, chocolate, something. But these parents obviously had a completely different idea of how to raise children, or a completely different, maybe they were preoccupied with other aspects of the case that they didn't even think about that. And that leads me to another theory my parents have, that possibly this boy, 16, 17, was being reckless, was drinking that night, was possibly drunk, and lost control of the car, because drinking and driving, never okay. And that is what happened that night, and that is why he could not go into the station that night with his father, because if he would have been breathalyzed, he would have had even more charges. Well, charges, I guess, since he didn't have any charges. He would have had charges pressed against him, and the next day, he definitely could have sobered up when the police actually came to investigate him. So, and that could also be why the parents didn't even think to have him come say sorry, because they were too worried about making sure that their son didn't go to jail for drinking and driving. Who knows if that's the truth of the story? We don't know. We didn't get told much in this, and we, you know, thank goodness we had insurance to pay back the van that was completely totaled in our front yard and completely unusable, and thank God it didn't run into our house or hurt any of us. It was best kind of crime scene, you could say. I don't want to even say that, just there could have been much worse, and we're thankful that it wasn't, but it doesn't make it any less traumatic or inconvenient, really. And like I said, this happened when I was 7, so 15 years ago now, and I still remember the look on my dad's face and that van right in front of our house. So obviously left an impact on me and made me want to never ever ever drink and drive, even if that's not what happened with him. So we thought that that would be the end of the story with that entire thing. We got a new van, everything was fine, we were a little traumatized, we didn't want to park our vans in the driveway anymore, which is some fear you should never have. But then it was about 2 to 3 years later, and we got a knock on our door. It was a man who was in like 20, 21, 22, around that age. And when my dad opened the door to him, he saw that this man had a checkbook in his hand. The man said to my father, "Do you remember me?" And my dad was just like, "No." And my dad is very good at faces, so like that is something we really have in common, is that like we can watch a show with an actor on it for like 1 season, and then we'll watch a movie of them like in the background, like sitting at a table, and we'll be like, "Ah, you see her? Yeah, she's in that show." Like we're really good at like recognizing faces. Like we could probably find a serial killer in disguise just by their mouth. We're pretty good at that, I would say. So my dad did not recognize him from anywhere, and he was just like, no, I don't remember you. And this guy just said, oh, okay. Closed his checkbook, turned around, and walked off the porch and left. After that, my dad was very confused, and then it dawned on my parents that would be about the same age as the boy who had done that a few years prior. What if he had come to our house to pay us, to give us some sort of check for what he had done, which is a nice thought, but then when you think that he just like closed the checkbook and left when he knew that we didn't know him, that's horrible. And anyways, we didn't really want his money, like we just wanted an apology. Apparently that was too hard for him as well. But yeah, so technically my house was a crime scene and he really got away with it for the most part. We don't know how much he got away with, but it seemed to me his punishment should have been a lot more than it was. But let's just hope he never did that to anybody else. And for anybody watching that is a teenager or even an adult, if you ever are drinking, never, never, never take your own car home, never drive somebody else's car home, never say, oh, I'm okay, and just do it. That can change somebody's life forever, and this situation could have been so much worse if it would have ended a life, and you do not want that guilt on your shoulders forever. Just take an Uber. There are so many Ubers, taxis, I mean, anything. Call your friends, call your parents, because I guarantee you, even if your parents are mad at you for drinking, they will come and get you because they don't want you to drink and drive either. So if you can take anything from this story, it's that please be careful when you're drinking and try to make the best decisions, or be with a buddy who can make better decisions than you, maybe like a DD, designated driver. Always remember, they're good people. So but that is it for my story time today. Let me know if you want more stories from me down below. And I know this is a little shorter video, but that's what happened, and I didn't want to, you know, make it dramatic or add more to the story just so it was longer. This is actually what happened, and I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about it. The only good thing that came out of it was to get to tell you a story, so. But no matter what, don't ever forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay,